How does it feel to be gaslit? So sad for me, that Muslims in the West, they can't wait for an opportunity to get a free Noddy badge from the masters, to get a free Noddy badge from their teachers. And this is exactly what we've been seeing with this Iran, Mahsa Amin protests, and how the West has covered it in their media. I'm not. Let me start out by saying that I view any country and any person critically. I do not embrace whatever Iran says uncritically. I do not embrace what any scholar or any religious leader says uncritically. But I do believe in a general and a broad form of solidarity. You see, solidarity is something different to being critical. Solidarity means that your love and your support and your camaraderie trumps your anger and your belligerence. And that's the same with Iran. I believe that from my side, there should be solidarity, not only with Muslims, and not because Iran is Shia, but because Iran is confronting the greatest enemy that mankind is facing, namely America and American culture, and not the American people. Note very carefully, I'm talking about the American system of desacralizing, dehumanizing humanity, the agenda of banishing religion, banishing traditional values, the American idea of the rule of the elite, the trampling of the small and the weak, the trampling on the children, the trampling on the elderly, and the abandoning or the trampling on the rights and the humanity of women. And all of these, even the very identity of women is under threat in America. And for that reason, and I haven't mentioned the wars, the imperialism, the slavery, the annihilation of certain nations in North America. I haven't spoken about the dual standards, the hypocrisy. So certainly my approach when it comes to Iran, to even the people in Saudi Arabia, to the Pakistanis, whatever, to my own fellow Muslims, is different to dealing with the orchestrators and the engineers of human destruction, of the destruction of mankind. And we need to have a very, very clear understanding of who are the enemies of mankind, who are the enemies of womanhood, who are the enemies of the oppressed, of the poor, of the exploited, of the average, as they call them in America, the average middle class. Who are the enemies of the people? And we should be taking a very harsh stand against them. Now, I, for example, have the position that at this moment in history, Iran, Russia, China, maybe Pakistan, if they can get their true president back, their true prime minister, and get rid of all the quislings and the American stooges there. Even sections of the Gulf of North Africa, of Africa, are really, there is an anti-satanic undertone in all of these countries. In some countries it comes through very strongly. And I'm not going to abandon that solidarity just because of gaslighting. And yes, some of our people sadly have been gaslit. People that I respect, like Shabir Ali, whom I really respect, and his daughter also. Take a look at this. They've been trapped and they've been gaslit. And I'm not here. Please don't think now that I'm saying that the death of Mahsa Amin, the lady who died in detention, or that the arrest for people on such flimsy grounds is right. I do criticize that. I dislike that. It's terrible that they're arresting a woman for wearing a scarf the wrong way. Whether they will kill her, I don't think we must make that assumption, though. I don't think, for us to say they beat her, they kill her. The Qur'an also says you need to have some proof. You can't just, because I say so, or because CNN said so, or because a family member said so of Mahsa, I mean, that means she was killed. I think we must allow also that process to investigate. There's a legal system. You can take the state to court. The Iranian state, in a while back, I think it was a few years ago, they paid dia, or blood money, to a lot of the people who died on the Ukrainian airliner that was mistakenly bombed. And so they have a record of owning up if they made a mistake. If somebody died due to their negligence, we have a record of them owning up. This Ukrainian airliner where they shot it, mistakenly out of the sky, terrible disaster. They have confessed, and they've sought the forgiveness and the apology. They've apologized to Ukraine. So, but I'm very disappointed that in this matter now, people are taking a much, much more exaggerated view and condemning Iran, and even transgressing their own traditional beliefs. I mean, let me show you this doctor. I can't really remember her name, but I know she's Dr. Shabir Ali's daughter. She's also a highly educated, sort of academic person. So a person of this stature has also fallen, and she's also trying to seek now what I call a noddy badge, a little gold star on the forehead from the imperialist and from the devil. And I will never seek a gold star or a little red star. When I was at school, the teacher would put a little star on your head, or would give you a little noddy badge, if you are a good child in the class. And take a look at this, and I find this so disappointing. I wish she didn't do this, man.
You may have heard that in Iran, a young woman, Mahsa Amini, was arrested for allegedly breaking hijab laws. She died in police custody. Since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, there have been laws dictating what women wear, and the police have enforced these laws. Yet there's nothing truly Islamic about the state dictating what people wear.
There is nothing truly Islamic about the state dictating what people should wear. Think about that. This is a good Muslim sister. She herself chooses to wear the hijab. I'm sure she believes that the Qur'an, or the Book of Allah, is a template from which we should try and shape society. I'm sure she agrees that there should be minimum dress codes in a society. I'm sure she even agreed with mask wearing, when that was enforced on Canadians, against many Canadians as well. And I'm sure she also agreed with the vaccine being imposed on Canadians, because that's where she is, in Canada. So there's nothing Islamic about the state enforcing it. It just doesn't tally with the record.
Wear, much less treating them so brutally that they die in custody.
Now that's an assumption, treating them so brutally that they die in custody. It's an extremely strong allegation to say that Iran killed a young woman by beating her and slapping her around. If that was the case, I condemn it completely. But, I mean, we must allow people the opportunity to at least bring the charge and allow for defense.
Every Muslim should speak out against this egregious abuse of power.
Now, the egregious abuse of power, I would classify the way that Canada has imposed its crazy gender policy, its crazy transgender rules and laws, where they're locking people up for not using correct pronouns. I'm waiting for the great Sheikh Ali and his daughter to condemn Canada's craziness. The gender, or the LGBT agenda in Canada, that is. And I'm not here to condemn people at an individual level. I'm looking at the agenda broadly, and it's very disappointing for me. So you see, the mask wearing, the enforcement of a dress code, including of a mask, which they claim to be scientific. So that is their science. Now, what if Iran uses their science, which is the Qur'an, which is their religious reasoning, to argue for the imposition of a headscarf? And obviously it's not a position which I advance, but I do offer any country the right to advance a dress code. I mean, how can we say that your country is not allowed to wear a dress code? In Pakistan, you're not allowed to walk without a woman is not allowed to walk about in a fairly nude state, with minimal clothing. In Brazil, that's allowed. So obviously between Pakistan and Brazil, there's a difference in dress code. If you come from Brazil and you walk in Pakistan, the way you walk in Brazil on the beach, you will be arrested probably. You will be prevented from doing that. But the biggest hypocrisy for me is this is the way they became the worst fascists in terms of dress code during COVID. And this COVID fascism, yes, they are saying, you also might be thinking, no, but Anwar, that's the science. Yeah, it's your science. It's not my science. And no, science isn't objective always. It's not always objective. The scientists can also differ. In this case, in COVID, the doctors, the professors, the immunologists differed on whether the face mask really prevents COVID. And so I debunk your argument. I reject your argument that the science said that the face mask prevents COVID. That's a lie. The science did not say that. A certain section of the scientists made that claim. But let me show you this, because the Australian media that are now up in arms against Iran, it's barely a year ago that I saw this on the media. Take a look at this.
Unmasked and under arrest.
I'm exercising. No mandatory vaccination.
Taken away, leaving his son behind.
My son. Well, you should have thought of that, shouldn't you?
They promised hundreds, instead just a handful of protesters. Their anti-mask rally ending in police.
So now the anti-mask or the dress code, that dress code, people protest against a dress code, terrible dress code that forces you to cover off your air passages, the means by which you inhale oxygen. That dress code, now the media is treating it like they're mocking these guys, like they promised thousands, only 10 came.
Handcuffs, 7 arrests and 27 on-the-spot fines. This man travelled from Bacchus Marsh to take part, but officers picked him up before he even made it to Spring Street.
They arrested me because I refused to give my name and address.
He believes COVID-19 is just a threat to the elderly.
A man in his 30s yesterday, that's not old age.
Who knows? Maybe he died from a gunshot wound.
Now that's a selective editing of the man's words. He obviously did not say such a stupid thing that the man didn't have COVID, he died of a gunshot wound. I know what happened during COVID is that many people who died with COVID was claimed to have died of COVID. And that was a big lie. You see, the small change with COVID and of COVID. And this is what he's highlighting. He's highlighting the fact that many people who died with COVID but of other causes while having COVID were ascribed or were recorded in the hospital and in the health system as having died of COVID.
You are wearing a mask though. Why come wearing a mask?
Out of respect for other people.
One organiser moved on before he could set up.
Turn your amplifier off or it'll be free.
Turn it down.
Yeah, sure. Turn it off or it'll be free. Black.
You see, so what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that, and it was worse in Canada. You saw the protests in Canada.
Tonight, police moving in to end the 3-week protest over COVID rules that has paralyzed the Canadian capital for weeks now. Hundreds of police officers taking action, issuing final warnings, and then making arrests, at times clashing with protesters. Tow trucks were moving vehicles parked bumper to bumper near the Parliament. ABC's Kenneth Moten in Canada tonight.
Tonight, after 3 weeks of paralyzing downtown Ottawa, police in riot gear taking on the so-called Freedom Convoy protesters.
Police say they were trying to avoid things like this after days of...
Okay, so I'm trying to illustrate to you that the acting against protesters and even shooting protesters, because we know They've shot protesters in London, and they've shot protesters in America and in Washington. And the West shoot protesters. And now they're making a big thing of Iran shooting protesters. I agree that no protesters should be shot unless they start attacking public infrastructure until they start, destroying the country's natural or the assets within a country. And I know for a fact that the demonstrations in Tehran and in the recent demonstrations have turned ugly, where fire engines, where natural, where social, public amenities and assets have been destroyed. And so the police have to act to defend these things. I'm a child of revolution. I grew up in South Africa. I faced the police. I know what it's like to face police action. I've been beaten. I've been shot at. And I reject it. I don't like harsh action by the police. But at the same time, I've seen how these protesters are abused by CIA operatives, by Western operatives who function within the ranks of the protesters. And I'm not in a hurry to condemn a country just because CNN and Canadian broadcasting and Australian broadcasting, all these Anglo-Saxon hypocritical media outfits, just because they are trying to gaslight me. So you need to remain calm. You need to not become emotional. You need to ascertain. What does the Qur'an say? We know there's a verse in the Qur'an that speaks about it. And let me just get the verse. It says actually, "Oh, you believe." In 49:6 it says, "Oh, you believe, if a wicked person comes to you with any news, ascertain the truth, lest you harm people unwittingly, and afterwards become full of repentance for what you have done." Now, I think this is a message for Shabir Ali. He has a program called Let the Qur'an Speak. And I don't think he's done justice in this regard. I think he's jumped to the conclusion that Iran has tortured and killed that innocent girl. And that has not been established. There's an accusation, and we know that an accusation is not equivalent to a finding of guilt. And you see, and also I've got another verse for these people who are listening to the West, because this is what the West is guilty of. In 2:44, Allah says, "Do you enjoin right conduct on the people and forget to practice it yourselves? And yet you study the scripture, will you not understand?" So the idea of the West being the lily-white moral sort of guide and the model of morality and democracy has been debunked. We know that's a lie. That's not true. What am I saying about Iran? You see, as far as the dress code is concerned, it's very simple. The Quran doesn't require the covering of the head, not in any verse. The dress code is something that is not even in the hadiths. The dress code is a position, a religious position that was arrived at by consensus, by ijma, and that is one of the four bases on which religious rulings can be made, ijma. Now, I disagree that you can call it a divine rule. I disagree that you can call the covering of the head as a divine requirement. It is a requirement of the people, yes. And laws can be created by the people. After all, we have parking laws, we have traffic laws, we have other regulations in any country, passport rules, traveling rules, citizenship. There's a lot of rules, and even with COVID, we had an avalanche of rules that were completely not based in the Quran. So, are you telling me that a country is not able to formulate its own laws, to make its own minimum dress requirements? I think Iran has that right. I don't agree that you should call it, I don't agree that you should call your parking laws the will of God or your traffic laws the will of God. But it is the will of God that you create an orderly society, that you create a structured society. And if they want to bring in the headscarf as something that they want to, as a nation, uphold, then so be it. I mean, that's not something I can question. It's not in my country. It's not compulsory. In my country, my wife chooses to wear a headscarf. My daughter again chooses not to wear a headscarf. The Qur'an requires modesty, and I promote modesty. The Qur'an promotes not making a sexual display or objectifying yourself sexually, and I'm all for that. And I will always uphold that standard with my family, with my daughters, with my nieces, that you are not here to make to objectify yourself sexually. Now the West, they've chosen to sexually objectify women, which is why I'm so disappointed in Dr. Shabir Ali's daughter, that, because de facto when you're condemning Iran for trying to bring in the headscarf or trying to maintain that, right? You are basically de facto allowing for Western objectification to get a free pass. And how can you go along with that? We should call out Western hypocrisy. And if we want to debate, we debate hard within our own ranks. And I'm here, you will see on this channel, I offer a very hard and robust critique of Muslim society and of Muslim practices. But I never ever go to the point of siding with the enemy against my Muslim family. You see, whether that family is Shia or Sunni. And that I hope I make that point very clearly. So I think, just on this Iran thing, it's a political issue. It's not a religious issue, it's a political issue. We know that America hates Iran. Why? Because when they kicked out the Shah, they kicked out American influence. And America is all about influence peddling. It's all about pushing its own interests. And in 1979, when Iran ended the control or the rule of America in that particular part of the world, it was humiliating because they ended American domination in the Gulf. And then America had to go to its Arab friends, its Arab allies in the Gulf, to set up its bases there. And then America had to defend Israel because Iran clearly posed a much stronger threat to Israel, with the support of Hezbollah, with the support of Hamas. It is a problem for Israel. And Israel hates Iran, and America is under the spell of Israel. America is hypnotized by Zionism. And because they are hypnotized by Zionism, and not Zionism as Judaism, Zionism as a form of Satanism. So America is hypnotized by Satanism, by Satan. Israel is an outpost of Satan. And Iran is anti-satanic. Hezbollah is anti-satanic. If you disagree with me, and unsubscribe and go and find a channel that is promoting Israel. Go and join those channels, or join a channel that promotes the Arabs being friendly with Israel. So this thing is political. It's not religious. The headscarf is a non-issue. I'm telling you, it's a non-issue. They're very lenient about it. I've seen Iran, that headscarf, you can hardly wear it. The women can wear it almost right at the back. So they've become so ultra lenient about it, but you cannot say that you are going to just defy and not carry out the law. I mean, I tried to walk without a mask here a year ago. I was at the flea market somewhere, at a little informal market. Open air. It was an open air market now. And I didn't wear the mask because I hated that mask. I need my oxygen, like breathing. And I don't believe that COVID spreads through that. COVID spread through other means. I did the research. I studied the papers, the research papers. And this official from the city of Cape Town in his uniform, he approached people around me and wrote out fines and enforced this mask, face mask. And I refused to wear it, and people were telling me, hey sir, you better put on your mask because that guy's going to fine you. And I thought, to hell with him. I'm not going to wear it. But I realized that by me not wearing the mask, I'm making myself subject to a fine or to imprisonment. So if you are going to be in Iran and you want to make a point and not wear the scarf, you must then accept that you will be arrested. It's the law. It's the law on the books. If I walk in Saudi Arabia, if you had, if a Brazilian woman comes to Saudi Arabia or to Pakistan and wears the scanty clothes that they wear in Brazil, they will be arrested. They will be stopped. And if they try and flaunt it, and if they try and make an open display of flaunting the law, they will get treated harshly in terms of the law. So Iran, if these people challenge the law, it's a nation, it's based on the rule of law, it's based on amending statutes on the law books. And if people reject the idea of imposing a headscarf, they should promote the idea in parliament. Iran has a parliament, they have elections. It's not like Saudi Arabia where the king announces an edict. Iran has a legal system. People are able to vote for different people. The same with South Africa. So I had to live with this mask because it was the government who was elected by the people who made a stupid law. And you can't just revolt over any small thing. There are major problems in Iran that are worthy of revolting over, maybe, like the dictatorship of the clergy. I believe that is a problem in Iran. But just to overthrow governments like in Libya or like Ukraine or like wherever else, just to overthrow governments, that is not in the interest of the people. That is in the interest of the West. They want to control your country. And I really feel disappointed that many people are mixing up issues. They're making a religious issue of a political issue. And then they are always a craving of Muslims to get a noddy badge, to get a little rosette, on the chest from Western imperialism. Say that I supported the West on the mask issue. Hashtag Mahsa Amin, like this daughter of Sheikh Ali just demonstrated. So let's keep an open mind. I condemn any unjust killing. I think that woman's death, Mahsa Amin, must be investigated. If she died, the blood money must be paid. The Qur'an says if you kill one person unjustly, it is as though you've killed the entirety of humanity. And the Qur'an says if you kill one Muslim unjustly, you will be condemned to hell forever, without pause. So it's a very severe thing. If Iran believes in the Qur'an, they will take this matter very seriously, this killing of Mahsa Iman, and they will make sure that if there's any culpability, that the guilty people are brought to book. But let's separate that from the right of Iran to make laws, to impose its sovereignty. And not for Australia and Canada and these hypocritical English-speaking nations to come out. Reject them, my brothers. Don't take them seriously. They've got no compassion for Iran. They've got no compassion for Muslim women. If they had, they would stand up to France, who's arresting Muslim women. They would stand up to Saudi Arabia, who is also harming women. They don't really feel anything for you. Let's just not be, gaslit so easily.